In Russia, large-scale landslides. In Saudi Arabia, meter-high hail drifts. In the Pacific Ocean, the unprecedented super typhoon Sinlaku. Across the United States, a series of destructive storms. This report presents the most anomalous climate events of the past week and explains what becomes the key factor for survival when standard rescue scenarios fail at a critical moment. United States. Last week, the central part of the United States faced a series of storms. On the 17th, the system reached peak activity, triggering a tornado outbreak. According to preliminary data, more than 70 cases were recorded, some of which are estimated to have reached EF3 intensity. Initially, the impact of the disaster was felt in areas of Minnesota. Near the city of Rochester, vortices moved through residential neighborhoods, damaging buildings and tearing off roofs. In the city of Marion, about 30 homes were damaged, and entire neighborhoods were covered with debris, fallen trees, and fragments of structures. In Wisconsin, in the small town of Ringel, a tornado damaged about 75 homes. Some residents were trapped in basements and required assistance from rescuers. A day earlier, on April 15th, in the city of Waukesha, a man was killed by a lightning strike during the storm. Severe consequences were recorded in the states of Illinois and Missouri. The disaster struck both residential areas and urban infrastructure. Critical life support systems suffered significant damage. Power lines were damaged, leaving a large portion of the territory without electricity. Along with the tornadoes, the region was hit by large hail. Hundreds of cases were recorded during the week, including hailstones larger than 7 centimeters. The ice damaged vehicles, windows, and roofs of buildings, worsening the impact of the tornadoes. The greatest damage was caused by flooding. In the Great Lakes region, primarily in Michigan and Wisconsin, prolonged heavy rains combined with saturated soil and active snowmelt led to large-scale flooding. Rivers overflowed their banks, in some places reaching record levels. The water level in the Muskegon River exceeded historical marks, leading to the urgent evacuation of residents from floodplain areas below the Croton Dam. Dams were under extreme stress. In some places, water overflowed protective structures, and breaches of certain earthen dams caused flooding of residential areas, affecting hundreds of residents. A government representative stated that this flood is unprecedented. According to him, people in this area are resilient, but the scale of what happened exceeded their capacity.
This is my home out on Black Lake, Bluffs Highway, the east side.
Saudi Arabia. Since April 13th, heavy rains, thunderstorms, and extreme hail have covered Saudi Arabia. In the capital city, Riyadh, within minutes, torrential rains triggered rapid water flows, which, together with hail, turned into rivers of ice. In some desert areas, the depth of the hail layer exceeded 1 meter. Large ice masses of unprecedented size led to the death of a significant number of livestock, causing losses for animal herders. A squally wind with speeds of about 60 kilometers per hour accompanied the storm, sharply reducing visibility and causing serious disruptions to transportation. Masses of sand lifted into the air colored the sky over the city of Sakaka in a bright orange hue. And in the Al Qasim region, several heavy trucks were overturned by powerful wind gusts. Russia. After record precipitation and flooding, a new disaster struck Dagestan: landslides. The soil on mountain slopes, oversaturated with moisture, began to move, slowly sliding downward and carrying away roads, utilities, and buildings. In the Lavashi district, a landslide several kilometers long occurred. Tons of soil slid into the Nakhur River, blocking its channel and creating a threat of flooding for nearby settlements. In the Dakadaevsky district, residents of the village of Urkarak watched for several days as the disaster destroyed everything they had built and created over the years. Houses that seemed to have been built for centuries simply collapsed like houses of cards. A total of 28 homes were completely destroyed, and about 100 more were under threat of collapse. Approximately 200 people were evacuated from the danger zone. The ground continues to literally slip out from underfoot. A local seismic station continuously records soil displacement over an area of more than 16 hectares. In Urkarak, The water supply system was damaged, and water trucks were used to provide residents with water. In the Dakadayevsky district, roads of regional and local importance, as well as a stone bridge, were seriously damaged. In April, an enormous amount of snow fell in the mountainous areas of Dagestan. In some places, snowdrifts reached 2 meters, and people remained without communication and in complete isolation for weeks. In the Laksky and Kulinsky districts, houses began to collapse under the weight of the snow. Emergency aviation delivered humanitarian aid to these areas. Avalanches, due to wet snow resembling waterfalls, and landslides cut off settlements in the Tlyaratinsky district from the outside world. The Sulak Visokogornaya meteorological station was buried under a record amount of snow. An employee who was trapped in snow at the station was evacuated by helicopter. On April 13th, in the Tsuntinsky district, after several days of heavy precipitation, an avalanche descended and covered part of the village of Shetli. As a result, residential buildings were damaged. Unfavorable weather conditions, as well as disruptions in communication and power supply, created significant difficulties for the rescue operation. Some of the victims were rescued by local residents who manually cleared snow and debris, pulling people out from under the rubble. A mother and her 7-year-old son were also trapped under the snow mass and remained there for 8 hours. They were pulled out alive. However, the woman later died in the hospital from her injuries. Malaysia. On the night of April 19th, a large-scale fire broke out on the island of Borneo in a coastal water village in the state of Sabah. Strong winds and the close placement of wooden stilt houses contributed to the rapid spread of the fire through the village. Within minutes, flames engulfed entire rows of buildings. The low tide worsened the situation. Firefighters could not reach an open water source, and narrow access roads hindered emergency vehicles. However, after 2.5 hours, the fire was brought under control. According to district police, there are no reports of fatalities, although some residents sustained minor injuries while trying to save belongings or help others. In this settlement, home to one of the poorest communities in the country, more than 80% of houses were destroyed by the fire. More than 9,000 residents were left homeless. Authorities opened 3 evacuation centers, and the area was declared a disaster zone. Vietnam. Since the 16th of April, the northern provinces of Vietnam have been hit by a powerful storm with thunderstorms, squally winds, and hail. On the 17th, in Tay Nguyen province, a woman died due to a falling tree. The hardest hit area was Lao Cai province, where in Bac Ho commune, a severe hailstorm occurred. Ice chunks up to 7 centimeters in size crashed into house roofs with a loud impact, shattered windows, and damaged vehicles. According to witnesses, this hailstorm exceeded all previous events in duration, intensity, and destructiveness. Due to strong gusty winds, roofs were torn off more than 1,000 buildings. During the collapse of one of the houses, 4 people were injured. As a result of the disaster, more than 200 hectares of crops and about 370 hectares of fruit orchards were destroyed, especially plums and pears. Within a matter of minutes, the fruit was knocked down and lay on the ground. Residents were left practically without a harvest, which is their main source of income. In addition, about 500 heads of poultry were killed in the storm. Typhoon Sinlaku. Super Typhoon Sinlaku became one of the most powerful and at the same time anomalous tropical cyclones in the western Pacific Ocean. It formed over the waters of Micronesia as a typical cluster of thunderstorms, but then the system began to develop at an unusually abnormal speed. In just about 72 hours, it transformed from a tropical depression into a Category 5 super typhoon, with wind speeds exceeding 280 kilometers per hour. At a certain point, the intensification within 24 hours reached about 120 kilometers per hour. This is a level of extremely rapid intensification, close to the upper limits of observations. The main factor behind such rapid strengthening was the abnormally warm ocean waters. In the area southeast of the island of Guam, where the system was intensifying, sea surface temperatures reached 30 to 32 degrees Celsius, which is significantly above the climatic norm, especially for April. In the western Pacific Ocean, the peak of the typhoon season usually occurs in June, And for April, a cyclone of such strength as Sinlaku is an exceptionally rare phenomenon. Satellite observations also revealed an extremely rare vertical structure of the typhoon. The temperature at the tops of the clouds in the central convection zone was approximately minus 95.7 degrees Celsius. This is essentially equivalent to the level of the tropopause, the upper boundary of the troposphere. This means that the updrafts within the storm were so powerful that they penetrated the upper layers of the troposphere. Such a structure indicates extremely high energy efficiency of the system, in which the latent heat of the ocean is converted into the kinetic energy of rotation at maximum speed. It is precisely the release of latent heat that serves as the key energy mechanism of tropical cyclones. It converts the ocean's moist thermal energy into the kinetic energy of the storm system. The scale and slow movement of Sinlaku were also distinguishing features. According to the United States National Weather Service in Guam, the zone of typhoon force winds extended approximately 443 kilometers from the center. Areas over which Sinlaku nearly stalled were subjected to destructive winds and heavy rainfall for about 48 consecutive hours, significantly increasing the damage. The typhoon left behind destroyed homes, damaged roads and port infrastructure, and caused serious disruptions to power and water supply. In a number of areas of Chuuk State, up to 75% of the electrical distribution networks were put out of operation. Telephone communication, including access to emergency services, was almost completely absent, which significantly complicated response efforts and coordination. At least 4 people were killed as a result of the disaster, and the number of victims and injured may increase as information continues to come in from isolated areas. The main impact of this devastating event struck the northern Mariana Islands, including Saipan and Tinian. The eye of the typhoon passed directly over them, with sustained wind speeds of about 233 kilometers per hour and gusts up to 282 kilometers per hour, corresponding to Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. In addition to the wind, storm surge played a decisive role. In some places, waves reached 9 meters, causing large-scale coastal destruction. The island of Saipan, known for its resorts and diving opportunities, was effectively paralyzed. Part of the population was evacuated to special centers, and hundreds of tourists were stranded due to flight cancellations. During the typhoon, 6 people on board a damaged vessel went missing after contact was lost on April 16th. The search was conducted by the United States Coast Guard. However, after 4 days, they had still not been found. When examining modern climate-related disasters, it becomes clear that people are often left one-on-one with natural forces. These events arise suddenly and develop rapidly, which means that in the first minutes and sometimes even hours, rescue services simply do not have time to respond. Even with a perfectly organized response system, there is a limit to speed. Then the factor of accessibility comes into play. Destroyed roads, debris, flooding, and extreme weather can completely isolate the affected area. In reality, the first person able to help in an emergency is often a neighbor. News reports frequently describe how local residents help clear snow, dismantle debris after earthquakes, dig through landslides with their bare hands in the absence of equipment, and do much more. However, if we ourselves are not ready to help a neighbor, it is unrealistic to expect help in return. They are just like us and live under the same conditions. It is important to set an example for others and remember responsibility for family and neighbors. It is necessary to think through response scenarios in advance, since in extreme situations, people can become disoriented and confuse both themselves and others. It is also important to understand that the way we look at others is the way they look at us. Consider whether you know how to act during a flood, tornado, or earthquake. Such action scenarios should be prepared even for hazards that have never previously affected your region, as they are now expanding their geography and appearing in the most unexpected places. Thus, readiness to help a neighbor, a sense of responsibility, and well-thought-out action plans can save lives.